Last night I got discharged from St. Vincent's Hospital over here in Middleburg, Florida, which I want to say, by the way, what a great group of people, an A-class facility. From the moment you step in there, the first person you meet to the last person that takes you out on the wheelchair, they are great. Everyone throughout the whole hospital are fabulous. The food was great, and I know it's not a Hampton Inn, it's still a hospital, but it's top notch. I just wanted to say that. But I went in Sunday night under a respiratory distress from complications from the COVID virus that I had tested positive for. I had a lot of people wanting to have me make this video about my experience of what happened, and I really didn't feel like it because right now I'm still recovering, so I'm a little weak from it. But it's important because what I've got to show you and share can save some people's lives. Now, this isn't going to be like my normal videos. I'm going to probably have to take breaks, so you're going to see different cuts in there, you know, as I do different scenes and talk about different things, because I do have to rest in between. But I'll tell you this, one, I'm not a doctor, I'm a realtor, so I'm not giving medical advice, okay? What this video is showing you the advice I used, that I asked other medical professionals, also researched some online, and how I applied it to me in my particular case. Now, for the purpose of the video, just assume everything I'm telling you is not true unless you verify it yourself, because I'm not giving you advice, okay? So we're going to go from there. Last week I had surgery on my arm. When I got home that night, I seemed kind of more tired than usual, although I normally work like a 12-hour day anyhow, or longer, whether or not I have surgery, so being tired at night isn't uncommon, but this felt a little bit more than usual. Well, Thursday morning I get up, I got to show a couple of houses, I check my emails, I got, geez, like 10 messages, I've got several emails, I've got voicemails. I can't get out of the house hardly. So I didn't even go to the office. I showed the houses, started answering the emails, started answering text messages, voicemails, stuff like that. Again, at the end of Thursday, I was more tired than I was the day before. And it turned out that Thursday night, I didn't even sleep that well. So Friday morning, I also had to show another house. I had an appointment at 9 o'clock. Now, I woke up about like 7 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't really feeling that good. I was tired, but I could tell something was wrong. Now, I've heard, like everybody else, okay, all the symptoms for the virus. What is the first thing you do when you go someplace and they check to see if you're okay? The first thing they do is they put that little gun to your head and check your temperature. Well, I never had a fever. And then they ask you, you know, have you had any cough, sore throat, stuff like that? I didn't have none of that. Are you congested, like a cold or anything? Nope. Breathe fine. Do you have a loss of smell or taste? No. I ate some Reese's peanut butter cups and they tasted just fine. So everything was, you know, checked off the list was fine, that it wasn't COVID. Okay, so I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking, well, maybe it's something else. I say, do I push myself and take some Alka-Seltzer Plus and show the house, or do I hold back? I decided to hold back. I called the customers up. I says, listen, I'm not feeling good. I don't want to expose you to what I may or may not have, and I'll make arrangements for someone else to show you the house at the scheduled time, which is what we did. So that day I went to get tested. So they tested me for both the flu and COVID. Well, it came back positive for COVID. Okay, so the Alka-Seltzer Plus wasn't going to work in this case. So anyhow, now I'm thinking about, okay, who have I talked to, who have I seen, you know, that in the last few days, now that I'm tested positive, I want to let people know. So I'm trying to do that. I also, now the doctors say that with the COVID, the one thing you got to watch out for is because it's a respiratory virus, so it goes after your lungs, is that once you start having problem breathing, you need to call for help. Get help right away, because it can turn real fast and it can get real serious. So as soon as you start having breathing issues, get help. And everybody says that. Well, I called a friend of mine that I know that's in the medical profession, and this video is going to end up going probably out to a lot of people, and I'm not going to mention his name. We'll just call him Ben Casey for the purpose of this video. And so I'm talking to Ben, and I'm telling him, hey, I just got tested for the COVID, and I got positive. And he says, well, first thing you need to do, and he texts me a bunch of all these vitamin supplements to take, the B complex, the vitamin D, the zinc, C, and what else? Vitamin D's, I think, too, something else. Then he also texted in there to get an O2 meter. And I'm like, what the heck's an O2 meter? And he puts it, you get it at any drugstore. So anyhow, he says, all right, I look it up online. I see this O2 meters. I go, what are these used for? Well, what they're used for is to test the percentage of oxygen in your blood that's going through your body. Normally you should be at 95 to 100, most people. Now he told me that I should be testing myself with this and monitor it and watch it, because he says when the COVID virus gets to your respiratory system, it can go downhill quickly, very fast. So the key is getting help as quick as possible. And that's where most people have their problems. Then people that have pre-existing conditions, or that will die, or it'll cause other damage to them, is because they get too late to the help. So he says if that drops below 94, you call for help. I says, okay. So I bring the I didn't get it. I had to have someone else get it for me. And they brought it to me. This was on a Saturday afternoon. So I got the vitamin package. I'm taking all that. And I'm looking at it. It's this box that this little meter comes in, this big box. And I'm like, I don't like stuff like this, a box like this, because it's probably got 100 directions, or it has an app I got to use on my phone. I'm not interested in that. I said, I'll just look at it later. Went to bed, and I'll wake up Sunday morning. Still not feeling good. I says, what the heck, let me sit here and open the meter. Turned out it was super simple. You put 2 batteries in it, and it's plug and play. And this is what it looks like. It's basically this, and all it do, you open it up, and you put your finger inside. There's a little button. You just push the button, turns it on. Once it starts, you push your finger in, and it'll go through the process and give you a reading. Now this is the same thing that is used in hospitals. Now, me, I'm not usually in hospitals, but it's what they tie to people's fingers. I always thought it was measuring their pulse. It measures your pulse too, but it also measures the oxygen level in your blood, because all your organs, it's vital that you have rich oxygen in the blood to supply them, to keep them functioning properly. So I said, okay, so I says, now I got a toy to play with Sunday while I'm just watching it. So I turn it in, put on my finger in it. Right away it says 94. I says, holy crap. I says, 94? He told me if it falls below 94, I got to call somebody for help. I says, I'm 1 digit away from calling for help already, and I just started. So I'm watching it. Later on in the morning, it drops to 93. I'm saying, oh geez. So I'm thinking, I says, well, it has to do with the oxygen. When we breathe, we don't take in deep breaths when we're breathing normally. We're breathing just little shallow breaths, just like that. So I says, let me take some nice deep breaths. So I took some nice deep breaths, let them out, let it get through my system. Sure enough, the number went back up to 94. And I says, I wonder if I can make it go to 95. So I take some more breaths and all this while I'm doing that. I got it up to 95. Well, it didn't stay at 95, it settled back down at 94 and stayed there for most of the day. Well, Sunday night, around 10 o'clock, I had the thing on continuously, and I'm watching it, and all of a sudden it dropped to 93. I says, okay, let me just do that breath thing. I go to try to take a deep breath, I can't. What has just happened was the virus was now entering my respiratory system. I was seeing it as it was happening because the drop right there, and now I can't take a full breath. So now I've got an emergency. So I ran and told my wife, pack a bag for me for the hospital. I'm going to the hospital. Now rescue is only about 2 miles from my house. So that I know if I call, they're going to be here in less than 4 minutes, and I wasn't ready yet, and I don't want them waiting for me if you're calling for an emergency. So I'm getting everything ready to go to the hospital to stay for a few days. So we're packing all that in. In the meantime, I'm dropping again. Now I'm down to 92. I'm saying, oh geez, you know, this is happening quick. And so we get my bag packed, so I call 911. And they ask, you know, what's your emergency in this? And I say, oh, I'm tested COVID positive and all that. She goes, you having a problem breathing? I go, well, on certain deep breaths. I go, right now I can still breathe, but on deep breaths, so I need transport. And she goes, okay, we'll get somebody. So they go ahead and they start to arrange for somebody to come out. And in the 10 minutes that all this took place, I dropped from 94 and it went down to 88, okay, that fast, and I'm not able to, you know, take full breaths. Well, the EMT arrived, and of course, you know, I explained to them about, you know, the O2 meter that I was using, all that, and they go, okay. So they threw me right in the truck and threw me on oxygen. Well, as soon as they got me on oxygen, that brought my oxygen levels back up. And so then they transported me to the hospital, which was probably, I don't know, maybe a 15, 20-minute trip. So we're getting to the hospital, and we're getting into the emergency room, and the first thing they're asking is, because they know you're a COVID positive person and all that, and they first thing ask you having difficulty breathing, this and that, and I explain the same situation breathing. But I says, but there's more to it than that. I says, I was monitoring my my oxygen levels, and in less than 10 minutes they dropped from 94 to 88. And they go, how do you know that? And I says, because I got this meter. I showed them the meter. She goes, oh my. It goes, because nobody does that. Everyone just comes in after they can't breathe. Well, that changed everything that they were doing. Pretty soon it was all hands on deck, because the more information these emergency folks have in the emergency rooms, the better they can help you. And in this case, I gave them all this information. Sorry, I had to take one of those breaks. So I gave them all this information, which is what they needed, because now they set up they were set up taking blood out of me like crazy, doing blood tests, and found out that I had a really high white blood cell count. So that meant something else was going on also. They hooked up 5 IV bags to me, all kinds of things, because what had happened was they had gotten somebody in the emergency room as the virus was entering this person's respiratory system. It wasn't already there, taken over, it was in progress entering. So it's a whole different way of treating. So they're pushing all these different things. Now, at this point, they don't know if it's viral or bacterial, the pneumonia that's going to be setting in. So of course they're dumping antibiotics, you're getting the steroids, you're getting all the fluids, and whatever else they're putting in. But all this is helping my body push this virus and to fight it. And all this information they have is helping them. So then they're coming in, they're taking x-rays, they want to see how bad it is and all this and that. So then they're telling me that, well, we're going to need to take a pee sample here. I says, I don't feel like going. They go, well, after you finish those 5 bags of those IVs of all that stuff, you're going to want to go. Finish those 5 bags, I still couldn't go. My body was sucking up everything they were giving me to fight this virus, what it was. So they take the picture, and they find out just that it was just starting, that there was pneumonia starting, and you see the virus was starting in on the lungs. I took out my my little meter because I wanted to compare it. I figured this was a good way to kind of calibrate it against the hospitals to see if this thing's pretty accurate. So she sees me with this, the nurse. She goes, "What are you doing, trying to compare it with that?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "All right, put it on." She goes, "What number do you got?" I go, "I got 97. She goes, "That's what we got, 97. I got a pulse of 91. She goes, "Got a pulse of 91. I matched exactly. I was pretty happy with my meter. Now, of course, they've got me on on oxygen, so it's, you know, it's keeping me going. Now, somebody had made the comment that as sick as I was with all this, I still didn't act like it. And we kind of put it together that it was because of the timing I caught this as it was happening. Now, let's hold this before now the next step is they're going to go put me in a room. But before they put me in a room, let's just freeze this for a second and step back to my house at that point when I went into having the problems. If it wasn't for that meter, I wouldn't know that the virus was starting to attack my respiratory system because I was breathing fine, normal, because I wasn't taking deep breaths. The only reason I was taking deep breaths was because of the meter. Now, say it's 10 o'clock and this virus is going into my lungs and starting, and I don't know it. Now I've dropped to like 88%, but to me, 94 to 88, I still didn't notice enough difference as far as me breathing. I would have went to bed. Just think, would have went to bed, slept for 8 hours, that virus would have had another 8 hours working on my lungs. That's what happens to most people. And that's what gets worse. Now their oxygen levels down lower, and especially with the people with pre-existing conditions, it's even worse because they're being deprived of oxygen for a long period of time. Now when they wake up, they really can't hardly breathe, and now they're calling 911 and they're getting rushed to the hospital. But by then, the virus has taken over so much. That's how important this meter was to catch it as it was happening. It's making all the difference. I think it's making the difference in my recovery, but there's more to it than that. Let's go back to the hospital when they're going to put me in my room. I got to take another break. Really rough getting through these videos. They take me up to my room. They're going to go put me in a room. So they got a nurse getting things ready and all this and that. So as they're setting me up in the room, they've got the thing on my finger that measures my, my pulse, and the oxygen level in my blood for their system. And the nurse, all of a sudden, as he's setting up everything, he's got me there, he stops, he looks at me, he looks at the meter, he looks at me again, he says, "You're not on oxygen." He goes, "You're on room air." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "But your number's 97. I go, "Okay." He goes, "It's impossible." He goes, I gotta watch this for a while. He goes, "I can't believe this." So he goes, I'm just gonna watch it for about an hour. Well, he comes back in, and of course, they're all monitored at their station anyhow. He comes back in, he goes, "You haven't changed from 96 to 97 on room air." He goes, "I'm not even gonna put you on oxygen." Well, the whole time I was there, I think I was probably the only, now this whole floor in the hospital was dedicated just to COVID cases. That's the only ones that were there. And I think I'm the only one that wasn't on oxygen there. And the only thing I can attribute it to is the fact that I caught this as it was happening. My body had a chance to suppress this and hold it down. And it helped me to where I'm breathing on my own even. Okay, as I've got this pneumonia in my lungs still from the COVID, and it turned out it's viral, so the antibiotics wouldn't work, so my body has to push it out. Well, someone made a comment, you know, there were so many people in and out, about how there's people there that were 40 years old that are just in so much worse shape from having what I have, and I'm 63, and I'm sitting there talking to everybody and all this. Now granted, now I couldn't go out and mow the lawn or something like that. I get up and walk around the room, I'd be weak, I'd have to lay down, but I was talkative, responsive, all that, and they said most of the people aren't. You know, they're just barely, you know, making it and struggling, and everyone's on oxygen. So I really think it had a big effect. So come Tuesday, I guess it was, yeah, they decided like that the doctor comes in, and I says, so, you know, what do I got? She goes, well, you've got the COVID viral pneumonia in both lungs, all that. And I says, oh, so you're going to monitor me for a couple more days? She goes, oh, I'm coming here to tell you that we're going to release you today. And I go, you are? She goes, I mean, you're doing fantastic for what you got. She goes, there's no reason to keep you here. There's nothing else we can do for you. Your body's running. We'll just put you on the meds at home, and you should be okay. And I says, okay. And so then that's when I came home. So while I was there in the room, I was playing with the monitor again. And, you know, because you have nothing else to do, you're watching TV. So I'm testing it all periodically during the day. Now, it does go through for the first 10 seconds where sometimes it'll have to settle down. And once it settles down, stays running, it stayed right with the hospital monitor the whole time. This thing is great. This is something everyone should have. So if you haven't been hit with this virus and you do, or you just feel sick, then you just check yourself, because this is going to tell you when something's going wrong right away. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you here at the end of the video. I'm going to post up here the package of the exact brand and where I got it, and you can get one of those, and then I'll have my information on who I am. And I'm going to, as I progress through this, and I'm feeling pretty good based on what I have, I'm going to give a progress report on how I'm doing, and as I get going here in a few days, because I should be getting a lot better. So until that video then, you know, I'm out of here.